Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today, as you can see, it's going to be Panzer Dragoon for the Sega Saturn. This is an on-rails shooter and a fairly simplistic one. It's not too terribly complex. It's also not too terribly long. It's one of those games you can probably beat in about 25 minutes, 25-30 minutes. Although, if you do play it for the first time, if you've never played it before, it will give you some trouble. Some of the later stages in the game are actually quite tricky. And, so yeah, we're going to go through the game on the normal difficulty. There is easy and there's also hard, as you can see. Panzer Dragoon also has an options menu, which has a lot of, good stuff in it. You can reverse your controls. You also have a lot of control settings. Pretty much every button on the controller is used for something. So you'll want to try to figure out what those are and get used to them. You got stereo and mono sound. You can actually balance the sound towards music or sound effects, which is kind of interesting. Not an option you see all that often in video games, even to this day. And of course, you got a sound test menu right here as well. So let's go ahead and exit. What I am going to be doing is skipping through most of the cutscenes and things like that, just to keep the pace of this video up. But at the end, I'll try to let the introduction cutscene roll out. It is the full motion video in this game in particular is actually really awesome. It's really high quality stuff. This is the introduction right here, but again we're going to skip through it because it goes on for about 10 minutes. It's a long intro, but it's a really good intro. It's got lots of great music. And then the ending is also, similar. I will let the ending play out, obviously, but just to keep the pace of this video up, we're going to go ahead and just skip the cutscenes and things like that. So yeah, from this first point of view right here, you can actually move your dragon around and dodge like it's in Star Fox, or it's like it's Star Fox or something like that. Holding down the attack button will move your reticle, or I should say it'll allow your reticle to spin around. And when your reticle is spinning around like this, you'll be able to lock onto enemies and then shoot out homing lasers. So I'm going to lock onto this guy and then that guy, and there we go. It makes a little clicky sound when you lock onto enemies. That lets you know that you can release your charge and attack these enemies with your homing lasers. Now if you press the button by itself, you'll just shoot like this, and it's just one bullet at a time. Now A, B, and C can all be used for firing, and if you mash them back and forth, you can actually do rapid fire. Or you can, hook up a turbo controller or something like that. I would probably recommend that because, bashing these buttons over and over to get rapid fire going will wear out your hands, and especially for someone like me who is getting a little bit older in their life, mashing buttons really fast like this is not good in my hands. Now we did take some damage, unfortunately. I really ideally want to take as little damage as I can over the course of this playthrough, because while you do get some health back after each level in the game, you don't get all of your health back. So I really want to make sure I take as few hits as possible in this playthrough to keep my health bar up. If I die, it's not a big deal, but if I die on one of the main levels themselves, then I get shot back all the way to the very beginning of the stage, and I don't want to be redoing these stages over and over the course of this playthrough. So ideally we get to the final boss with one life, preferably, and then at the final boss, when you die, you actually continue right at the final boss. The final boss is basically its own level. So there's stages 1 through 6, and then stage 7 is just the final boss. That's it. So but yeah, don't want to take too many hits. I want to keep my chances of survival up. Now, one other gameplay mechanic is pressing L or R. This actually rotates your dragon to the left or right. And I want to go ahead and kill these guys, get rid of them. Watch out for these flowers here. They will sort of, they'll clamp up like that, and you can actually take some damage. And notice that I'm just locking on from a distance and killing these guys from a distance. But there we go, we can rotate all the way around. Now what's interesting about rotating around is when you're to the right or behind you or to the left, you cannot move your dragon, you only move your cursor. So when you want to actually dodge projectiles, you need to make sure you're facing forward. If you're not facing forward, then you're not going to move your dragon. You're probably going to get hit by projectiles like I just did right there. I did a poor job of dodging right there, but that's okay, not a big deal. And this is going to actually lead up to our first boss fight. One thing that's great about Panzer Dragoon is you'll notice that it's a very cinematic type of game. Lots of memorable set pieces in this game. So you get to the end here, and then the boss basically breaks through this ceiling, and then boom, you're just out, on the open water again. And Panzer Dragoon is just amazing in that regard. Even though The you know, the engine itself probably wasn't optimized the best, and so you've got, you know, a relatively low frame rate compared to other games on the Saturn, especially Panzer Dragoon 2 or Panzer Dragoon Zwei as it's known. Panzer Dragoon Zwei has a much higher frame rate. It's much easier to play. But despite that, the set pieces are still very memorable in this game, and it's still an excellent game to play. Just a very fun, great set pieces, great cinematic vibe. Panzer Dragoon does what a lot of rail shooters just weren't able to, and it still holds up really well in a lot of ways. So well that recently there was actually a remake of it, which I still haven't gotten yet, and I need to actually check that out sometime later this year. I'm just waiting for it to come out on other platforms. I'm going to date this video by saying that it's currently only available on Nintendo Switch at the moment, but it is slated for other platforms like PS4 and PC and Xbox One. But you guys can expect a Let's Play of that whenever I finally get that. So one of the things on this boss is this last part of the boss, he shoots out these missiles, and you have to destroy those before you can actually finish off the boss. And so what I like to do is just point my reticle on top of the missiles, and then destroy them with my normal fire. And here we go. Just gonna go ahead and finish it off with my homing lasers, and that's it. That's the first boss. Alright, now if you get a high shot-down ratio, I don't know what the exact threshold is, but it seems like 90% and up is solid, and if you get at least above that, from what it seems like, you'll get 1 credit, or if you get what I got, 96%, you'll get 2 credits, and so that's how you can actually earn continues in this game. Playing well rewards you with more continues, and so for a first-time playthrough in particular, that's actually really good to know. So, you know, playing as best as you can is ideal. But, you know, Panzer Dragoon is definitely a bit of a memorizer. You do have to know what comes up, you know, ahead of you. So what I recommend doing in this game is looking at your radar in the top right and looking at the yellow dots, and then making sure that you're actively going for those yellow dots immediately. Because the longer enemies stay out on the screen, the more likely they're going to shoot at you, and you're going to get hit by projectiles. Projectiles can be a little tricky to avoid in this game, and I'm getting hit by something right now, and I don't know what it is. So it can get a little overwhelming. It can get overwhelming with lots of enemies flying around, on this level in particular, and projectiles just coming at you from all different ways. So a couple different ways you can go through a lot of these sections. You know, you can just lock onto enemies and just use your homing lasers. Or you can just mash the fire button, which I'm going to actually do for this part right here. And I'm just going to use my thumb and straddle both B and C together. What I do when I really want to do fast rapid fire, I take, you know, 3 fingers and I spread them across A, B, and C, and then just mash the buttons back and forth. But again, my hands are very stiff these days. They're sore, and so it's really hard for me to do this. This is actually painful for me right now, which I'm sad to say. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take my thumb and just, you know, again, straddle it over B and C, and then just kind of shoot like this. It's a little more comfortable in my hands, and it still gets the job done. But I could also just try to lock onto enemies. But the thing about locking onto these guys is that once they lunge into the air, they just lunge straight at you, and it's very difficult to get rid of them with your homing lasers. Because your homing lasers, they do take time to come out. They're not like it doesn't just come out instantly and hit the enemies right away. So sometimes using you know, just your standard fire is ideal. But you can see that we've lost a lot of health, and I'm actually very disappointed in that. But level 2 is definitely a big difficulty spike compared to level 1. Level 1 is just like a training level. It's kind of a walk in the park. It's just very relaxing. But level 2 has a lot of stuff that can hit you. It has a lot of areas that, you know, can get overwhelming. So this is another just very memorable set piece here. You've got these sandworms that jump up, and they actually start shooting these green globs at you right here, and you can actually destroy them with your shot. So you want to just focus on getting rid of the green projectiles. And, you know, these guys, they're not really meant to be destroyed. They're just meant to be chipped away at. But you can shoot them. You'll notice that their sort of armor will break off as you shoot them. It's a really neat effect. Despite being a really early Sega Saturn game, Panzer Dragoon has a lot of really neat graphical effects and whatnot. And I didn't rotate around fast enough, unfortunately. And one of my problems right here is I am actually using the Sega Saturn 3D control pad, which is a pretty good controller, but with the way I've got the controller positioned, I've got it on my lap, so I can mash A, B, and C with 3 fingers, you know, relatively easily. But the problem with this controller, and I should have switched over to a regular Model 2 Sega Saturn controller, is that the triggers, because it's on my lap, the triggers will actually trigger. They'll hit, you know, my leg, you know, my dragon will just rotate around when I don't want it to, and so that's something I have to watch out for when I play this game. For those of you guys that haven't used a 3D control pad on the Saturn, it's like a Dreamcast controller. Its triggers are almost identical to a Dreamcast triggers. I'm going to move over to the right too, so this guy doesn't hit me. And so for this boss right here, we're just going to go ahead and just lock on and just try to stay above or below him. Otherwise, we'll end up running into his big projectile here. There we go, just like that. Alright, so stage 2 done. And we'll see how much health I get back. I think I should get back a decent chunk, but it's not going to be all of it, I bet. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be all of my health. So again, that's why like performance in your levels is very important if you want to survive through this game. If you get sloppy... Oh look, I was under 90%, still got 1 credit. Okay, missed 14 enemies. But yeah, if you get sloppy with this game, you know, your playthrough is going to be very difficult. The later levels are going to be quite challenging because you're just not going to have the health to absorb a lot of hits. Yep, yeah, and you can see we didn't get all of our health back, but we got a good chunk of it back, so we're back in good shape. And if I can do decently on this level, then I can go into the next stage with all of my health. So what I recommend on these guys is just shooting them directly. I don't recommend using your homing missiles or homing lasers. They also shoot out these circular ball projectiles, and those can be destroyed with your main shot. And so that's going to be a very important gameplay mechanic to stay on top of for the rest of the game from here on out. A lot of enemies are going to start shooting out these types of projectiles, and it's important that you destroy them. In later Panzer Dragoons, Panzer Dragoon Orta in particular, that's a very, very important gameplay mechanic to stay on top of, is destroying projectiles. For anyone curious, I actually have a full playthrough of Panzer Dragoon Orta on my channel from several years ago. I did a 2-part Let's Play of it, where I played through the whole game. I still need to do Panzer Dragoon Zwei, so hopefully I'll be able to get to that sometime in the future. But Panzer Dragoon Zwei in particular is an excellent, excellent game. Panzer Dragoon 1 is a fantastic game too. I love it. It's one of my favorites on the Sega Saturn, but it hasn't aged the best because of its lower frame rate. The lower frame rate actually makes it a little difficult to aim in a lot of cases. You know, moving your cursor around is not anywhere near as fluid as it is in Panzer Dragoon Zwei. This probably runs at like 15 or 20 frames a second, whereas Panzer Dragoon Zwei, I think, is pretty much a locked 30 for the entire playthrough. It's beautiful. It might even be smoother than 30. It might even be higher than that. But they did an amazing job with Panzer Dragoon Zwei. And Panzer Dragoon Zwei introduced a lot of new mechanics as well, like this sort of berserk attack, like a panic attack that makes you invincible for a little while and just, you know, shoots out hundreds of lasers, you know, into pretty much everything on the screen. It's really a really cool effect. But Panzer Dragoon 1 is still a great game. I still highly recommend it, and there's a lot of other interesting features in this game as well. Like you do have hard mode that you can try to beat, and I think the ending might even be different on hard mode. But also you've got like 9 or 10 cheat codes in the game that really change the game. It's quite interesting. I'll try to talk about more of those later in the playthrough. So you've got these turrets here. They shoot out projectiles that can be destroyed. Ideally, you want to just sort of lock onto them before they even really appear on the screen. Kind of like so. Now, sometimes, like, you'll notice that you'll be holding down the button, but your reticle won't be in lock-on mode. And I still haven't really figured out why that happens. But you really got to watch out for that. Sometimes you'll turn, you'll be holding down the button, but it won't actually be in lockdown mode, or lock-on mode. Lockdown mode. Got another particular lockdown on my mind, obviously. So for these guys right here, I just try to take them out real quick with my homing lasers, because then they start flying around and shooting missiles at you. And then you take damage, and I really do not want to take damage. Oops. And there they go. So I've got to be careful, avoid their projectiles. And we should be at the boss fight. Now this boss isn't too difficult, but one thing I do like to do is I like to zoom myself out, or zoom the camera out. I do that by hitting Z. I can do Y to bring myself a little bit closer. Sorry, X. And then Y brings me the closest, like so. I don't like being super close like this. It's a little awkward. But for certain boss fights, I do really like being fully zoomed out like this. It gives me more screen space to analyze where I'm going to move. So it makes dodging things a little bit easier, especially on this boss, where he's got these blades that spin around, and you have to dodge up and down, sort of weave in between them. His weak spot is in the middle here, as you can see. So we're going to go ahead and just focus on locking on and trying to avoid his blades. Wow, that was fast. I barely had to do anything with that phase. That was actually pretty good. So now he's got weak spots above and below, and you can easily tell where the weak spots are because you know you're able to lock on. If you're not able to lock on, then it's not a weak spot. You can't do any damage to that part. So use your lock on to figure out where the weak spots are. Now there is a nice little trick that I just did there. If you press L and R together, you'll actually do a 180. So instead of just turning 90 degrees one way or the other, you'll just turn around immediately, like so. And with this 3D control pad, it's a little tricky to do. I actually still struggle with doing it precisely. You don't do it precisely and it just doesn't work, and your dragon just kind of sits there like a bumbling idiot. So it's definitely something that you have to practice. And that could also just, my struggling with it could be the fact that I'm just using the 3D control pad. If I was using a Model 2 Saturn controller, I think I would have a much easier time. Let's turn around and destroy these things. Okay, no, we're fine. Okay, now this is actually... Okay, no, there we go. That's actually very interesting. The blades actually took off. That doesn't normally happen for me. So apparently I destroyed the bottom half first, and then the blades took off. So, and I destroyed the blades separately after that. So, yeah, some of the bosses can be pretty interesting in this game too, like that. Multi-phased bosses depending on which parts you break off first. 97%, not too bad. So, we've got 6 continues now. Yeah, and I think I had mentioned earlier, I want to get a 1 life clear on this, but really, it's just, you either get a 1 life clear or a 1 credit clear. They're both the same thing in this game, because you don't get lives, you only get continues. So that's something to keep in mind when you're going for a clear in this game. Alright, so in this level, what I like to do is sort of stay towards the middle. If I stay towards the middle, I'll dodge a lot of these guys' projectiles. But this is I'd say this is where Panzer Dragoon starts getting more challenging. It's this level right here. It's a very fast level. There's a lot going on. You can slam into enemies. You can run into their projectiles. So on and so forth. And I'm still taking damage, unfortunately. There are parts where I like to just use my regular shot. There are other parts where I like to use my homing laser. So in this beginning part, I like to use my homing laser. Well, or my regular shot. We're going to do my regular shot right now, actually. Because these guys are just coming out really fast. Alright, this part could be really tricky as well, so I'm just going to use my regular shot. These guys shoot out a lot of projectiles that are actually very difficult to avoid. Oops, and I just turned by accident. That was because my analog trigger hit my leg and triggered on its own. I did not mean to do that. Trying to take these guys out really fast. Gonna do the same thing as before. Not great, but you know, what can I do? Like I said, this is a tough level. Again, trying to stay more towards the middle. A lot of these guys will shoot out lasers, and the lasers oftentimes go towards the middle. Really love the graphics style in this game. If you look at the texture work and whatnot, it's very, very unique. The Panzer Dragoon series has a very distinct art style, and it's one of the things that makes the series, not just the first game, but the other games in the series stand out. Just gonna do rapid fire again, although I could probably just do my homing lasers here, just like so. There we go. And we're actually getting close to the boss fight. And this boss fight has a unique gimmick up its sleeve. Looks like I can just lock onto these guys as they fall down, and that's not good. Oh, I still took a hit. Not a lot of damage, thankfully. Alright, we're gonna do a little bit of dodging right here. Dodging through objects like this can be a little awkward in this game, but they're not too bad, honestly. They're not too bad at all. And that's it. We're at the boss fight now. Alright, so this guy, you cannot lock on to him initially. He's got these arms that'll just reflect your lasers. And so you basically have to just shoot normally. And he's also going to dash right past me, and so ideally what I want to do is just kind of stay up to one side of the screen or the other. There we go, just like so. I'm gonna go ahead and just pummel his arms. His arms are gonna shoot out at me as well. Trying to switch around, but I can't because my controller sucks. Okay, now he's going to throw out one of his arms, just like so, so I'm going to try to target the other one. And I'm having a really hard time aiming at him, so... But that's the low frame rate. You know, things feel a little sluggish. It's not an ideal scenario. But there we go. One arm's down. I've taken a lot of hits, unfortunately, which is bad. Rotate back around, just like so. Alright, second arm's down. Now he's got this laser. What I want to do is just rotate around. I don't want to really shoot him, because that laser does a lot of damage. And now we can lock onto him. So now that his arms are gone, we can lock on. And my cursor didn't go into lock-on mode. And there we go, he's dead. Whew. Thought I was going to get a game over there. But we're good, we're good. Hopefully I have enough health coming back to me. Yeah, hopefully I have enough health coming back to me on this next level to get through this next level. This next level is very tricky. Stages 5 and 6 are the hardest levels in the game, if you ask me, by far. You really have to know what's coming up. You have to know how to deal with every situation if you want to get through it without, you know, getting the game over. So sequences like this you can't skip through, you know, say after you beat a boss fight, but there are, you know, sequences that start before levels that you can skip through, and this next level I think is one of them. Episode 5. Actually, it's not. Never mind. I was getting this confused with another part of the game. It's okay. Alright, so this is a tough one, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and just use our main shot here to destroy the projectiles that come out. Just like so. Alright, let's rotate around. To lock on all these guys, dodge your projectiles. Remember, when you're in this forward-facing mode, you can move around. This is not one of those games where you just move a reticle around the screen. There are several on-rail shooters like that, actually quite a few of them. One good example is a game I did a Let's Play of years ago called Burning Soldier on 3DO. Fun game, but you have no control over, you know, a physical object. It's just moving a cursor around the screen. One of the great things about Panzer Dragoon is, you know, you can move your dragon around. There is a little bit of strategy involved. There is dodging. So it's definitely a game I like to recommend to people that enjoy the Star Fox games. Star Fox is very similar, you know. Star Fox 64 incorporated a reticle for charge shots, but, you know, the core of the gameplay was still about dodging, moving your ship around and dodging. Let's rotate around. Rotate back this way. Just gonna use my lock-on shot. We're making okay progress. We're not making the best progress. I've taken quite a few hits. But again, this is a tough level. One of the reasons it is tough, though, is it's actually kind of hard to see what's going on. A lot of this stuff blends into the background. And also, the low-ish frame rate doesn't really help either. And also, this game's draw distance doesn't help either. So again, like I said, Panzer Dragoon's not the one in the series that's aged the best, unfortunately, but it's got some quirks you will have to get over to get the most out of the game, to get the most enjoyment out of it. You can lock on to those cones on the top. I'm just gonna call them cones. That's what they look like. Alright, so we've got these, you know... Oh no, I did it again, man! I did it at the worst possible time. I clicked the analog trigger in by accident. Yeah, you'll notice that the music is also cut out. This is an issue with my disc, and I don't know why it does that, but we're gonna have no music until the boss fight. And we should be pretty close to the boss fight too. But that big object with all the cones up top, it busted out these yellow projectiles, and what they do is, you know, they sort of just target you, and you have to just dodge around them. And that's what I was trying to explain, but I hit the trigger by accident, and just completely, you know, well, yeah. So what I'm going to do is take out these guys first. Very important to get rid of these guys. There we go, I got one. Now I'm gonna get the other one. Or try. Okay, it's dead. Alright, phase 2. Now I have to destroy each of these 3 tiers. You notice that they're blinking as I'm shooting them. These rotating objects. It's good to just try to do one at a time. And I only got one. Normally I get at least 2 there. But my health is getting very, very low. So not a great level. But I think we'll get this without dying. Alright, so phase 2 is, it's got this, rotating, you know, missile launcher. But this blue part right here, that's what we want to go for. That's the weak spot of the boss. So we're just gonna rapid fire it as quickly as possible. Hit these missiles if they come at us. Again, easier said than done because of things. Whew. That was a close one, actually. You notice my health bar is flashing red now, which is not good. There's a chance I'll be able to get through this last level without dying. We'll see. The last level in the game is definitely the toughest level, if you ask me. But it's still completely doable. All these levels are completely doable if you're familiar with them. On your first playthrough, you are going to die a lot. And it'll be frustrating. But on subsequent playthroughs, you'll know where the enemies are spawning from. And, sorry, you'll know where the enemies are spawning from, and then you'll be able to take, you know, proactive measures against them. So this is another fast level as well, kind of like stage 4. So on this level, it's mostly about taking out the small enemies, because they all shoot at you. The boss here that we fought earlier, he's kind of secondary. You don't actually kill him on this level. Let's rotate around. Lots of kamikaze planes here as well. Alright, now you've got this big guy here that likes to drop out these enemies that shoot lasers at you, so you have to watch out for them. Dodge these poles. You don't want to run into any objects here. Any solid objects will hurt you. So you have to be careful about that. Alright, we're going to have some guys that pop out here too. We're going to just go ahead and just rapid fire them. There's one. There's two. And I didn't get that third one. I have to be really careful. I'm running low on health. Remember, if I die, we have to do the whole stage over again. But at least I get to start with a full health bar. And to zoom out. Can actually zoom back in a little bit here. You want to kind of stay low on this part. You notice that there are guys positioned higher up? And if you stay low, they're not going to hit you. But you can still actually lock onto them, because all you have to do is just tap your reticle up just a tiny bit, and you'll be able to lock onto them while you're down below. More flowers from earlier? Sort of flowers. They're not as flowery now. I'm just getting sideswiped by some enemies. It seems like it's good to stay low in general here, if you can. We might end up having to do this level over again. One or two more hits and I'm dead. Alright, here's this guy again. Wow, we made it through. Whew. That level, I swear, it's tough. And look at all those enemies I missed too. Very challenging level. My performance would definitely have been improved with a little more hardcore memorization. Alright, so I will let this one play out. This is the lead up to the final boss. So basically, this guy that we've been chasing for the whole game is actually the final boss. He transforms into him. And this guy is also featured in the introduction video too, so there is like a cohesive story, you know, throughout the whole game, which is cool. So this is kind of like you're chasing this guy down, and then it culminates in this awesome final boss fight. It's a really good final boss fight. We have to be really aggressive here with the lock-ons and the rapid fire. Panzer Dragoon's Vi has an amazing final boss as well. You kind of want to lock onto all of his little objects as well, which destroys them, and constantly rotate around. Notice that there's just a lot going on right now. And you don't want to run into his tail either. I'm pretty sure it hurts you. Alright, rotate around. Now we have to lock onto all these other objects too, because they basically dive bomb you. Alright, rotate back around, just like so. He swings his tail around, so you have to avoid that. God, took another hit. And we did it. Whew, we got it. I thought I was going to die there too. Man, what a tense playthrough. I was thinking to myself, Panzer Dragoon's an easy game. And then in these last few weeks and going back to practice the game, I realized it's not so easy. I played it so much as a kid that it just became easy. But, you know, taking some time away from the game and then coming back to it, it's actually a fairly tough game, and that's not even taking into consideration hard mode. So, but yeah, guys, that is Panzer Dragoon for the Sega Saturn. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you're new to the game, hopefully, you know, watching this will help you with the, you know, to formulate some of your own strategies and things like that. Help you deal with certain situations in the game. A little tough to talk and play a game like this at the same time too, because there's so much going on. But hopefully still this video was of use to you, or at the very least, hopefully you just enjoyed watching, seeing the game through to completion. So, but yeah, this is the ending of the game, and I'll go ahead and just roll this out. So I don't really have a whole lot else to talk about. You know, if you guys like the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you like playthroughs like this, definitely consider subscribing. I post Let's Plays like this every week. And yeah, until the next one, guys, take it easy. I'm just going to leave you guys with the ending. So, take care.
meniscus.